But anyways, let's move on now to 11 through 20, and let's jump in at number 20. We have Marcin Gortat of the Washington Wizards. Coming in at number 19, we have Nerlens Noel of the Dallas Mavericks, the $72 million man. What did he turn down, or allegedly turn down?
Way too much money.
Yeah, and he accepted a qualifying offer for $4.7 million. So
smart move by his agent there.
Yeah, Nerlens needs to fire his agent. Anyways, going to number 18, we got Nikola straight up for Draymond Green Vucevic from the Orlando Magic. Then we have number 17, Steven Adams of the OKC Thunder. Then number 16, we got Pau Gasol of the San Antonio Spurs. Number 15, we got Jonas Valanciunas, JV from the Toronto Raptors. Number 14, we got Yusuf Nurkic of the Portland Trailblazers. And number 13, we have Dwight Howard now of the Charlotte Hornets. Number 12, we have Andre Drummond of the Detroit Pistons. And number 11, rounding out the third of this ranking, is Myles Turner of the Indiana Pacers. And guys, we are back now after that lovely graphic. And I want to talk about one guy first, and it's Yusuf Nurkic. And Dave, I'm going to throw it to you first. Yusuf Nurkic coming in at 14. I feel like it's a little bit low for him. After the season he had with Portland, after being traded from Denver to Portland, I feel like it's a little bit low for him. I feel like he should be a little higher.
To be fair, he did get injured, which led to some concerns. But again, this is a very positive way to look at it. The thing is, when he came to Portland, he kind of turned their season around a little bit. They were kind of fading a little bit out. He gave them a shot in the arm. He's a very passionate guy. He was kind of, I don't want to say kicked out, but basically the whole reason why he left town was he wanted to be the guy, and he wasn't. And
well, that was because Jokic was above him, and Jokic was kicking ass.
Exactly. But what you do get with Nurkic is defensive monster down low, and somebody who excellent on the boards, excellent getting the ball back out to people, and a decent shooter. He's not going to wow anybody with it, but decent enough.
But you also need to be a shooter when you have CJ and Dame out there.
I was going to say, like, literally, that's the last thing Portland needs is another shooter. They didn't have enough shots for the guys anyway. So I just think his impact was more than what was on paper. That's one of those guys where I want him to be higher, but I want to watch him play out a full season, because when he was in there for the last, 30 games of the season?
20.
20
Started
games?
19, played 29.2 minutes per game.
Yeah, I mean, he was something else.
Shot 50% from the field, 15.2 points per game, 10 rebounds per game, had 3.2 assists per game, had 2 blocks per game, and 1.3 steals. He was everywhere.
What a bargain for them, too.
And I feel like he should just be higher. I mean, I look at Dwight Howard, and Dwight Howard has not brought anything like that in the past 3 years, and somehow he's higher than Yusuf Nurkic.
Here's the thing about Dwight, though.
What?
When
is the last time Dwight Howard cared?
No. I'm not saying that last year was any good for Dwight. And this is the one thing I brought into Dwight, because I personally had him in my top 10. I had him at 9.
You did.
And the reason why is Dwight is someone coming into this year where I feel like he's going to have the best year we've seen since he was in Orlando, because he's being spared.
That last year.
Yeah, no. But this time he's actually being paired, like a coach that actually knows him and knows how to use him, went out and traded for him. Like,
we said that
the Lakers didn't know how to use him. We thought that going home would help, but that didn't help because the Spurs light in the East didn't really help him. This is a coach in Charlotte. I almost said Houston. In Charlotte, where he is going to be able to work with a coach that knows him, and that's why I think he's going to be a little bit better this year than we've seen in the past.
And I'll give Dwight credit. He was still efficient from the field, 63% from the field. He still grabbed over 10 rebounds per game. He still scored around 13 points per game. But this is not a guy that is exciting me anymore. He has a nice per at 20, but that's because he's grabbing a ton of boards. I mean, these numbers are inflated. When was the last time Dwight Howard has cared about basketball? I feel like it hasn't been since Orlando.
Kobe pretty much took that out of him.
And I haven't seen it come back from him.
Yeah.
And we talked about he's going home to Atlanta. He's going to care. Atlanta didn't want him anymore.
No.
They traded him away for pretty much nothing. They didn't get anything back from him. And this was Dwight Howard, a guy that used to be one of the best centers, and if not the best center in the league.
Yeah, for a couple years, for sure.
And we have not seen that in years from him.
But he doesn't need to be that guy. And the NBA isn't set up for a center to take advantage.
But a guy like Yusuf Nurkic, who fit a role perfectly, should be higher than what Dwight Howard's been doing for the past 5.
He could be, but the problem is sample size. So we have a very small sample size for Nurkic, where yes, he was explosive, yes, he meant everything to that team at the time. But you have a guy like Dwight Howard who you can count on for consistency, for boards, for probably you said, well, like 13 points last year. I think we'll see that maybe go up a little bit this year. I'm not expecting the world out of him, but what he is consistently above average, and that's exactly where we have him ranked.
I don't know.
That's why I'm okay with it. I think it's a good fit. Like he said, you have a coach who understands how to use Dwight Howard. We're not asking him to be the focal point of anything anymore.
Totally forgot about the Houston days.
He's an anchor.
I mentioned the Lakers. I mentioned the Hawks. I forgot about those Houston years.
Well, he literally got walked out of Houston.
Yeah, and he had a good year in 2013, 2014 his first year, but other than that, really didn't do much in Houston. But that was, again, him and James Harden didn't go along. And you bring up the notion that Steve Clifford and him have chemistry. Obviously, 2007 to 2012, Steve Clifford was an assistant coach with the Magic, and then even with the Lakers, 2012, 2013.
And that 07 to 2012, like you look at his stats
Dwight was
overall,
one of the best players in the league.
Those were his best numbers.
Yeah.
Best numbers of his career came in that time.
Was it 2009, 2010 when he took him to the finals?
Yeah, I believe they beat LeBron in the conference finals.
Yeah, and that team was built around Dwight's going to be down low, and he can dish it out for 3-point shooters. And you have
shoot the three, he tips it in.
You have Rashad Lewis, Hedo Turkoglu, Jameer Nelson, JJ. I think JJ was on that team. I mean, I think even Peja might have been on that team for a little bit.
It was like a shitty version of what we saw in Houston this year.
Yeah, honestly, and that's why I thought that maybe he would. I don't know. I've been disappointed with Dwight Howard recently.
But I think your expectations are too high. That's the difference.
This is the thing that 13. I mean, what he comes in at 13.
It's a slightly above average. That's what you got to think.
But I think a guy like Yusuf Nurkic brings more to his team than that.
But
and you obviously think that as well because Yusuf Nurkic was higher than Dwight Howard in your ranking.
Sample size and consistency are the two things that I base this off. And I agree. I think that Nurkic should be higher than him probably at the end of this year. I think right now it's fairly close. And it depends what you're looking for. If you want someone to be a defensive monster and to get you a couple points, yeah, Nurkic can do that. Nurkic can bring energy. Dwight Howard is consistency, though. I would trust Dwight Howard in situations I wouldn't necessarily dump the ball off to Nurkic in. And that's the thing. You're not going to ask Dwight Howard to do the same things that Nurkic is doing. That's different teams, different roles, different players. But again, consistency is my game.
You know who I think should be a little higher in this kind of bracket?
And one thing you just go with it.
Marcin Gortat. Marcin Gortat.
Why should Marcin Gortat be higher?
I look at and I know that everything's not numbers, but he's a guy that averaged at least a double-double this season. And I look at guys like Nerlens and Vucevic and even Steven Adams, maybe Paul Gasol, and I go, you know what? Out of those guys, maybe Vucevic might be the one that I put off to the side. I go, who would I rather have as my center? I would go with Gortat. And maybe it's because I'm looking at where it's like, okay, like you said with Yusuf, where it's like, you know what? He does have two of the better guards where Gortat is the same thing. He's got Bradley Beal and he's got John Wall.
Washington had the best five starters, unit in the league last year. The problem is that was because, we all assumed Jan Mahimi was going to be better than the trash that he showed up to. And if he can do it this year, then at least, we see it a little bit different. But last year when John Wall, Bradley Beal, when they were splitting time, Gortat got a lot of looks at second unit teams because of their lack of depth at center. So I think that could actually hurt him if
he's going up against the ones.
Yeah.
Well, he just had more time against the twos because they lack depth.
Yeah.
So,
and one thing with Gortat, he's not a guy that's athletic. He's a guy that's just he's kind of more of an enforcer out there. He's a better Zaza. Honestly, he's not a guy that's super athletic. He's not hurting or helping your team. He's gonna help at least be tall and grab rebounds and block shots occasionally, but
and be a center.
But yeah, with Gortat, he's been consistently giving you the same thing throughout his NBA career. Where a guy like Nerlens, who is higher, who I felt kind of a Willie Cauley-Stein situation. I thought he was gonna be higher on this list than 19, and Dave brought up defensive specialist when he was talking about Dwight Howard. That's what Nerlens is. Yeah. Is a defensive specialist, and we saw Dallas when they were pairing Nerlens, Dwight, Harrison Barnes together, and even Yogi Ferrell in that starting lineup.
Oh yeah,
they did really well together, and I think Nerlens is a guy that stats really don't benefit him. This is a guy that had a 20 per last year, and then coming over to Dallas when he did start. He only played 22 minutes. I think that's going to significantly increase this year. He's going to be up around 27. He's going to definitely start more games, but shooting around 57% from the field, shooting 70 from the line. He was grabbing 6.8 boards per game. He was averaging a block and a block and 1.1 block per game. But it's still something that he's not forcing a lot of fouls. He's a guy that is at least putting himself out there a lot. I just think that Nerlens is a guy that is ready for that next big jump in his career. And, he's only 23 years old, a guy that was highly drafted, and he really hasn't been able to just get the shot because of injuries. Joel Embiid, Okafor in front of him. I mean, this is a guy that I felt the 76ers should have kept.
Well, yeah, I think we all can agree on that the 76ers got stuck with Ja. They tanked his own value, and Nerlens was the only one who they could get out of town. Fair enough. But I think the thing that kind of is going to mess them is still he's splitting time because in Dallas, you still have Dirk around there, and you have Harrison Barnes who... Yeah, they slid him down to the 3 for a little bit, but that wasn't really his true position. So, they're going to balance minutes. I know Dirk's probably not going to soak a ton of minutes, but Nerlens can't give you an outside shot yet. So you have to be very careful because he can't play with everybody. Him and Dirk can pair well. Him and Harrison can pair sort of well, but you can't pull another, that's the problem. It's situationally good, and I think defensively, just like you said, though, he clogs up everything within reach.
But when him and Dirk are on the floor, again, when you look at that, what that can bring for a guy like Dennis Smith, where you have two guys coming up for horns, and you have Dirk who could pop out and Nerlens who could run to the basket, and then also Nerlens can take on the guy that Dirk is guarding, or the better 4 or 5, just because he is so valuable on defense, and Dirk really doesn't have that left in him. I just feel like Nerlens is going to be such an asset that's not really there statistically, and that's why I had Nerlens at 19 where he was ranked, but I felt like, when I was ranking him, I thought he was going to be higher than that. And when we're comparing, guys like Nikola Vucevic and Nerlens and Steven Adams, like guys like that who have specific, at least, positions and specialties on their team, Nerlens, Adams, more defensive guys, or Vucevic is more, strictly offensive because he can't play defense at all.
Nope.
I would rather have Nerlens because of his youth. And just because I feel like he hasn't hit that full potential and hasn't, had the minutes to reach that full potential yet. And I feel like once he gets that in Dallas, he's going to be able to do it. And that's possibly why he turned down $17.5 million reportedly.
This is a prove-it year for him. So, yeah, if he can make that impact and truly take over, then, yeah, he could get paid, close to a max deal. I honestly believe he's one of those guys who, if he shines, absolutely. And this team, again... I know we're very high on young players because it's all about potential in the NBA, and that's exactly where we're at. They've got, an aging Dirk, and they've got a guy who can take over at center, again, not direct one-to-one, but he's going to take over at center. He's going to have his opportunity this year because if he can't do it this year, he's going to get another, $10 million contract for a couple of years, and that's nothing.
Yeah, and one thing I want to bring up in going away from Nerlens, because I feel like he's going to take the biggest jump out of all these guys. I think he's going to, from 19, he might hit around that 13 spot next year. I think he's probably going to take the highest jump out of all these guys. But one guy, a couple guys I want to bring up are like Valanciunas, Gasol, Drummond. I mean, those guys, they've been veterans for a while now. Gasol obviously longer than Valanciunas and Drummond. Yeah, I know.
But
I'm still saying these guys are at least, still valuable. They're still near that second half of our rankings here. Yep. But out of these guys, like, Valanciunas, Gasol, Drummond, they kind of had down years. Paul Gasol really, he had a decent year last year, but still, Paul Gasol wasn't really that effective in the playoffs and wasn't really, he's showing his age.
But he's still got that soft touch. He's still got a good shot. You're not going to get a well-rounded game.
Do you think these guys are going to bounce back is really what I'm saying? Do you see...
Gasol, no. Valanciunas, I think, is very much on the if he gets traded, which has only been rumored for the last 2 years.
Drummond, too. Drummond's been in trade rumors
Drummond's
been
in trade rumors, but he had such an awful year. That's a guy who I was so incredibly high on because how dominant he was. And that's kind of a take back because you don't see that in the NBA is these dominant centers who can just own you inside. You can double team. It didn't matter.
You know where Drummond was last year? 2.
Too high.
Yeah,
he was
way too high.
He was number 2 in our rankings last year.
Again, these were a little hot take-ish after the playoffs, after their run where they actually they got swept. They looked incredibly well.
High. We had the Pistons very high last year, but
Drummond and Paul were 2 guys who were top 10 centers for us last year.
Yeah, and that's why I look at the personal rankings for us, and I kind of look at yours where you have Drummond at 9, kind of maybe, and you can speak better than I can, maybe the same situation like I have Dwight at 9, whereas you and Dave had him way lower than I did.
Well, I had Drummond there at 9 just because, again, he's still young. He had a down year last year, but the Pistons in general had a down year last year.
Still had a 20 per, too.
What was that?
Still had a 20.91 per.
Yeah,
Drummond's still effective.
Yeah, the problem is he had to sit on the bench because he couldn't play.
Yeah, he was getting consistently good in foul trouble, and he wasn't. He took a step back defensively as well.
Yeah.
That shows
defensively,
in the fouls.
And he couldn't make free throws. It was just you can't leave the guy on the court.
And the one thing is you also you look at the situation with Reggie Jackson where he was hurt, and then you also, they were trying to find, the working starting lineup. Tobias Harris wasn't starting consistently. I just feel like that Pistons team really didn't find their stride, and I feel like Drummond, if he does hit his stride, he can be a top 5 center in this league.
They're going to build a fucking wall.
Yeah, they're going to build a fucking wall, Dave, and they're going to need a big guy like Andre Drummond. I just feel like
him and Boban,
he's shown that flash before. And he's still a young guy, and I feel like there's circumstances in which the reason why he fall from 2 last year all the way down to 12 this year. But I feel like it's not like, Andre Drummond's a terrible player.
No, but I mean, he went from like 16 points a game and almost 15 boards.
He was a guy that was a 20-20 guy.
Yeah, that's where we were projecting him to be because that's the next step. He had made the jump from 13-13 to 16-15. But dude is gonna continue dominating. Another step back, and it's just like, all right. Small step, hopefully with deep breath, and he comes back strong this year.
But I think now having a playmaking guard who can get him the ball, like a Reggie Jackson, who is healthy, that can possibly give him the other boost. Because when we saw Reggie come over, we saw what Drummond was able to do, right. At least when the trade was happening. So I feel like Drummond, he's a guy that, he still has that potential where a guy like Dwight, I've been seeing the same shit from him for 6 years.
The other thing I find funny with just comparing last year to this year, in this bracket alone, we've got Vucevic, Valanciunas, Gortat, Adams, Nerlens, Turner, and then there's one more in there I'm forgetting. There's 7 guys in here, 6 to 7 guys, all stayed in the same bracket.
Yeah,
all stayed in the same one and didn't make the jump.
Steven Adams.
Yeah, Steven Adams.
And Tristan Thompson was hit 21 last year too. But yeah, I mean, it's just interesting where, again, like we said, these guys really haven't been able to make. We said, I think it was like 23 to about 16. These guys are all similar, and it's really your preference that you take. And I think a lot of these guys win, and at least for me, Drummond won because of his age. Or a guy like Yusuf Nurkic won because of what he was able to do in a short situation where these guys we've been seeing consistently from, Paul Gasol, Steven Adams, Vucevic, Gortat, I think I said Paul Gasol, Valanciunas. These guys, we've consistently been seeing the same thing year in and year out for them since they've joined the league.
It's not bad. It's just nothing amazing. It's nothing. You're not a transcendent talent. You're not a standout star. You're just a good center, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Well, and the guy I want to bring up that might be the transcendent star to come out of this is Myles Turner.
Yeah.
A guy that was tied for top 10. Him and Al Horford were tied for top 10. Dave, you had him highest at 9. Ricky and I had him both at 12. Al Horford was an even 11 all across the board on our rankings. They both tied with 60 points. Al Horford got the win, though, because he was ranked higher consecutively on all of our boards. So Al Horford is a top 10 center. Myles Turner barely misses it. How much do you think Paul George not being in there either helps or hurts him? Because Myles Turner, he's got a ton of tools to become a great player.
Well, and the thing I look at is when it comes to Turner, it's not necessarily Paul George not being there. It's just the fact that this is a kid who, second year in the league, the first year coming out, we talked about, hey, you know what? He's got some knee injuries, and he's going to go through that. Only played 60 games, only started 30 that first year.
Only played 22 minutes.
This was the first time we got to see him start 81 games, play 31, go from the 22, almost 23 minutes per game, up to 31.4 minutes per game, up the field goal percentage, up the from 21% to 34% from year 1 to year 2.
No, to be fair, he only shot like a handful year 1.
He didn't shoot that many year 1, but he still got up that percentage, up the free throw percentage, everywhere you look.
Everything you want to see.
He got better. It got better, basically. Yeah. And that's what I'm expecting, and I want to see going into year 3.
Yeah,
and I think that's totally reasonable.
I'm just wondering, with Paul George not having a guy like Paul George on this team, a guy who we ranked pretty highly in small forwards, which is easily the top heaviest position out of all the positions we've ranked. How much does it hurt Myles Turner? Because now more of a focus is going to be on him.
Someone's going to have to step up, and if it's got to be Myles Turner, it's got to be Myles Turner.
I mean, on that team, who else would you want to step up? I mean,
I'm not saying step up. I'm not saying step up. He's going to be the guy.
Yeah,
he's going to be the guy that they need to look at. But how many times have we seen a 5 be the focal point of a team? And he had a guy like Paul George, who was a top 3 in the NBA. Now off his team. I'm just saying, how much does it hurt him? I'm not saying that he's not a talented player. I just don't know if he's going to be able to do it consistently because, again, he's only 21 years old. He has the injury problems. I think he's a fantastic player, and I think when having a guy like Paul George or a very great guard next to him, he's going to be a top center without a doubt.
I mean, well, he has Darren Collison, who is a solid bottom end, but still solid point guard. I mean, Oladipo can't shoot, but he'll take shots.
I mean, how well is the pick and roll with them going to be doing? I mean,
yeah,
I don't know.
Like, I honestly think that he's going to put up, 18, 19 points a game and, 12 boards. I think that could be his season this year. He is very good. He's, like you said, probably going to be the focal point of this offense. They got, 3 power forwards who could start, which is the exciting thing. So they're going to have lots of outside shooting. That's the thing. They picked up Bojan, which, again, he's a 3-ball chucker. Great. You have Oladipo, who happy with the ball in his hands, but, again, I think he's going to have a lot of time dedicated to him under that net without a lot of trouble.
I mean, he's a guy defensively that's a stud. He's a guy offensively that's growing a 3-point shot 34%, like you said, last year, and that's still increasing, hopefully, with Paul George leaving. I just feel like Myles Turner, he's definitely got...
He's primed to take a huge step.
He is, and he's a guy that...
And it's Indiana betting on him, too. I mean, that's their future.
He's a guy that last year, I mean, in Game 4, he had 20 points, but he even in the games he struggled, in Games 2 and 3, it always felt like he consistently either made a big play near the end of the game for Indiana. I mean, he was always the second guy for Indiana, and I just wonder if Paul George leaving will hurt him a little bit. I'm not saying that he's not going to, be a talented player. I just feel like a lot of pressure on a 5 might not work well for him.
Pressure, yes, but I don't think the Pacers have expectations this year. I mean, I could easily see Thad Young leading them in scoring. That's not a down. That's just saying, that's where their system is going to end up at. But yeah, I think Myles Turner he's primed for a phenomenal year.
Yeah, are there any guys outside of Myles Turner that you think can make a jump, or are there any guys that you feel like are just going to completely fall off this year? Or is everyone pretty much ranked?
If he wants to retire, I could see him doing that, and the Spurs stretching out the rest of his contract. I think that was kind of the expectation.
Him falling off because he's just not going to be in the NBA.
Yep, pretty much that. Outside of that, Steven Adams consistent, like you said. I think Turner and Nurkic are the 2 guys who are going to jump, and Nerlens. So you've got 3 young guys. I think Drummond could bounce back. I'm not 100%. The problem is our top 10. I feel like there's just a lot of good guys up there, so I don't know how many of them are going to break into it.
And we're going to get to the top 10. Ricky, you want to mention anything else before we move on?
Really, the only one that can break out of the top 10, and really I'm only mentioning it because you mentioned him, is maybe Al Horford.